It is now time for me to introduce Hugh Rundle. Hugh is the manager of digital discovery at La Trobe University. He is a fan of collaboration, good documentation, and asking why we do it that way. Hugh is a founding member of New Cardigan and one of the maintainers of the Bookworm project. And Hugh is going to speak to us today about a 3-step recipe to get OER book covers into Alma. Take it away, Hugh.
Thank you, Deborah. Can I just check that you can see my slides and you can hear me?
We definitely
All
can.
perfect.
Yes, excellent. Good. Hello. I'm Hugh. Thank you for the warm welcome, Deborah, and your acknowledgement of country. I'm on Wurundjeri land today, which is where I live and work, and I'm very grateful for that every day. Today we are cooking with Alma, and this wasn't a really very big project, but I thought it might be useful for other people to know how we did this. So I am sharing what we did. So here we go. So at La Trobe, we have a pretty major open education program that we run at the university. The library runs the La Trobe e-Bureau, which is an open textbooks publishing program. And our learning services team also work with teaching academics to encourage them to prescribe open educational resources in their teaching. And something that they said would be quite helpful for that is if they could show our academics, a whole bunch of OERs. And then we realized we hadn't consciously put any in our catalog. So thanks to my colleague Ruth, who did the first step of this, which was to bring a bunch of OER sources into Alma through the Alma Community Zone. And then thanks, James Cook, for the inspiration. We realized that there's this thing called collection discovery, which we had not actually switched on at that stage. So that's what we wanted to do, and basically have a special collection of OERs. But here's the problem. For various reasons, a lot of OERs don't have book covers in their MARC records, either in the Alma Community Zone or anywhere else. And collection discovery doesn't really look that interesting if you don't have book covers. So we knew what we had. We knew we wanted covers. What are we going to do? And then we thought, well, maybe we could just scrape the web. We'll run a script. Can't be that hard, surely. So we gave it a go. And that's what I'm talking about today. So step one is that you export the data using Alma Analytics. And when I say the data, I mean basically what is your collection of OERs that you want to upgrade. Then we run a Python script, and then we import a new file, which the Python script has created, back into Alma to update the records. So step 1 and step 3 was my colleague Ruth Lewis, and step 2 was me, is essentially how this worked. So step 1. All right, so basically you need a report that tells you this. So we filter it to the collections we want, and then what we need to spit out is these things in bold are the most important, which is why I've made them bold. You need an MS ID to be able to identify the books on the way out and the way in. And we need the URLs in order to search the web for book covers. So this is what your Excel report from Analytics needs to output. And then with the magic of Python, we grab that Excel spreadsheet and we turn it into an Excel spreadsheet that's a little bit different. So for the scripting nerds, we use Beautiful Soup to pass the page. We use requests to actually make the web request. We use XLSX Writer to create an Excel spreadsheet at the end. We use time for reasons I'll come to in a second. I used multiprocessing, but I'll explain that wasn't necessarily very sensible. And we use CSV because I'm lazy. So first of all, the script reads an analytics CSV file. Now, the problem with that is that you don't get a CSV file from analytics, you actually get an Excel file. But I know how to make Python read a CSV file, and it's pretty easy to manually change an Excel file into a CSV file, so I did it the lazy way. If anyone else wants to use this and it gets popular, I might make the effort to actually read the Excel file in the first place, but I'm just being honest, that's why I did it that way. And then for each line, we check if the domain matches any of the domains that we know about. So, is it from the core OER collection? Is it from Open Textbook Library or whatever? Then if it matches, we use the rule to find the cover images that we know works on that site. We save the URL of the image, and then we save the MS ID from the original file, and we put both of those things into a new output file. So you can see on the screen here, this is the command you run. I use UV to create virtual environments for Python. That's not completely necessary. And then we just run the script, which is OE_covers. The Alma export CSV is the data you got from Alma. So that's the file name that you got from Alma Analytics. And the output file is just an arbitrary file name you tell the script, and that will create a file with that name, which you can then import into Alma Analytics. So just to explain what I mean, essentially, I just created a web scraper. So it's not really that sophisticated, but we find the core domain of the, I just realized I'm pointing at this with my mouse. We find the core domain of the landing page for the ebook because they're all ebooks. And if it's, for example, JCU pressbooks.pub, then we know that it's a Pressbooks site. And we also know that if it's a Pressbooks site, then there is always going to be, if there is a cover image, it's always going to be in a div with the class book-header _cover _image. And so we know that that is where the image is going to be. And so I can just grab it from there every time. If it's on La Trobe's eBureau website, because we use Squiz Matrix, it's not quite as simple as it is if it's Pressbooks. We need a slightly different way of finding it. So every ebook site has a different rule for how we find the cover image, but they're all internally consistent, which means that we can, as long as we know what the site is, we can create a rule for finding the image URL. Now I've forgotten where I'm up to. Apologies. Is that everything I needed to tell you? Yes. All right. Okay, and then we output it into a new file, which is the one that we're going to import into Alma Analytics. So what we're basically doing here is we're creating a file which is then going to run through everything based on the MMS ID, and it's going to add a 956 tag to the mark record for that item. So if you're a cataloger, this is what we're doing. We basically create a spreadsheet with 4 headers, which are mark tags. So the MS ID, so we can match, and then cover image URL, and then we're just saying, yes, this is a thumbnail, and it's local. So use the $9. That's a Alma thing to tell Alma that this is just local to our particular instance, and it's not, we don't want to write it back to anything. So Then we have step 3. So you should now have an Excel file, and now you just need to import it. So you go into Alma, to resources, import. You need an import profile. So we have a load cover images import profile, and then you run it. It'll ask you for a file. You give it the file you just created, and then you submit, and then you wait a little while, and then you look at your Primo interface, and you're delighted to see that there are now cover images. So now this is an example of what it looks like in our Primo. And that's basically what I wanted to show you. So some last things to know. Some books just don't have cover images. So you can go through this scraping exercise and you're still not going to get 100% hit rate. We focused on OERs because that's what we're interested in, but also the only reason I was confident to just make a web scraper to do this is because they're all Creative Commons licensed. So it's not like there's any, well, we'll come to that. I didn't think there would be any copyright issues, but you obviously need to take care with this. Now, it turns out that OpenStack's book covers are all rights reserved Rice University, which seems incredibly bizarre to me. I have had correspondence with them about this, and they said, yes, but you can use them. But it turns out that actually they're not on, it's not very easy to scrape them, so you can't do that with my script. We're adding them to 956 tags, but if you're creating original records that don't exist in Alma Community Zone or in the ANDB in Australia, then you should be using 856 tags. And I'm really keen for any new records anyone creates to include the thumbnails in the 856 so we don't have to do this. And if you're interested and you want to add to the code or you just want to use it, then that's the URL. And it's also in the program from today. If you want to get in touch, there are the email addresses for myself and for Ruth. Hopefully that was helpful to somebody. Thank you, Deborah.
Thanks very much, Hugh. That was really interesting. This is me, Patricia. I'm just checking the chat and we don't seem to have any questions. Marnie did say that you can export CSV from Alma Analytics. I know that I do that as well, but sometimes it depends how you open it or what program you open it with as well. Yeah. We do have one question that just came in. Catherine asked, apologies if I missed this, but how did you go? How did you go with the images displaying in the collections view?
Yes. Sorry, you didn't miss it. I didn't actually explain that. So they just magically appear. So basically, if they're in your 956, then they'll appear in all views in Primo. So they'll appear in your normal search view, and they'll also appear in the collection discovery automatically. So once you've added them to your 956, you have to wait a little while for it to re-index, and then it should just appear.
Good to know, thank you.
And Catherine, we don't appear to have experienced any issues with sizing, which might simply be because we're web scraping, they're all sort of optimized for WebView anyway. But I'm assuming there's something in the way they're displayed in Primo as well, which will take kind of, it'll do something with the image. I don't know, to be honest. But we didn't have to do anything in particular on that, and we didn't have any issues.
So just for the recording, that question was, were there any issues with the sizing of images in collection discovery? So thank you for sharing that. Looks like that's it for questions. So thanks again, Hugh. That was really interesting. And yes, I've looked at the collection discovery lack of images before and thought it looked boring as well. So it's good to know there's a way to improve it a lot.